Okay, hi guys and girls. So I want to show you my new favorite decks of the latest Hearthstone expansion. So let's just get started with Jade Lotus Rogue. Now there are different versions of this deck, but I think like this version here I definitely like the most. So it's a rather aggressive deck. It has 2 Cold Blood to finish the enemy off. And also 3 1-drops, 1 Swashbuckler and 2 Small-Time Buccaneer. Yeah, you can just look up the deck for yourself, you see the cards. And you could play a slower version, for instance, with Nasoth and some healing maybe, remove the Cold Blood, etc. But I don't think the slower version is good for Rogue, because Rogue needs to be kind of fast, and its Hearthstone will always be super aggressive. There's not really time to to play a slower deck, especially with Rogue, because Rogue has no healing, and at a certain point the Rogue class will definitely run out of removal, and then you just lose the game immediately. So it's really important that it's very tempo driven and also very aggressive right now. So that's one of my favorite decks. So the next one, well, I would not call it one of my super favorite decks, but it's a pretty cool deck, I think. And it's super consistent now, and also super strong. It's the new Miracle Jade Druid. So basically you have like, let's see, I think 6. Yeah, you have 6 cards now to ramp with, so 2 Wild Growth, 2 Jade Blossom. If you get an early Jade Blossom, it's really strong, especially if you get like a Wild Growth Jade Blossom into Nourish, like you're already at 10 mana or 8 mana or whatever. But let's think, how much mana is that? It's, if you coin it out the first turn, it's 3 mana. The next turn, then it's 5 mana, and then it's 2 more mana, 8 mana. So you basically are at 8 mana turn 4. That's pretty ridiculous if I count it right now. But you get the point, it's pretty fast, and especially if you include 2 Jade Blossoms, the deck's ramp will become so much more consistent. It's really, really super helpful. And I think this deck is actually fucking broken. It's really, really broken, because most of the time it's not even playing anymore. So the druid just ramps, and then destroys all your minion and plays his own Jade Lotus cards, which summon golems, and you will just get wrecked. So I don't like that so much in the latest expansion. Most of the time it's even more curve stone, because if the enemy has a good curve, you're just gonna lose. You can do nothing most time. So now you have a few options here with the Miracle Druid. Like, I only put in 1 Ancient of War, so you might actually maybe remove 1 Jade Blossom, or maybe 1 Raven Idol, and maybe add a second Ancient of War or a Taunt creature, because it's really aggressive right now. But I really like the deck like this, because it's like pretty consistent if you have 2 copies of all your ramp cards. So that's the Druid. Next deck, yeah, didn't come up with this deck. So this is a deck I saw Criparium was playing, and I also like it a lot. It's a lot of fun to play, actually. It's an anti-aggro Jade Shaman that is also kind of really good versus slow control decks like Priest. Priest has very, very, very hard time beating this deck, because they can just not overcome the end game, which are like super strong Jade golems, and might lose many times versus the Shaman here if it doesn't draw ridiculously good. So you really have also just a very good chance, defeating other control decks, and also other aggressive control decks like the Jade Rogue that I showed you before, because this deck has a lot of heal. So it basically has 2 Elemental Distraction and if you combine that with Hello Seal, that's a lot of health. Then you have two Chinyu water speakers, which are basically 12 health or even 18 health, or if you combo it with Bronze Spirit like 2 times, you have like 24 health. That's ridiculous. So it has a lot of health regain. That's very good, and it also has a lot of strong board clears. So I have two Maelstrom Portal, two Lightning Storms, and two, what is it called? Where is it? Two Elemental Destruction. So you have a lot of board clears, and yeah, a lot of heal. So that's very good. And also the late game is really good. So, but it's really important. You really want to get at least, you really need one combo with Bronze Spirit, otherwise you cannot beat control decks. So that's really important. And eventually, if you have, like, for instance, the Jade Spirit and the Claws on a high mana turn, you can play all the free cards, and get like 2 additional Jade Golems, which is huge. It's like ridiculously huge. So that's really important. You really want to combo your Bronze Spirit. You don't want to just play it like this and hope that it will survive. That will most likely cost you the game. So that's really important playing this deck. So what have we left? Well, obviously, you might have seen this deck. It's the Pirate Warrior, And this deck is really very strong, and I also like to play it, especially since, you play versus so much Reno locks right now, and I have to say I hate Reno locks so much. I hate this deck so much. It's so stupid. But anyway, and I think this is the most consistent deck, maybe also Aggro Shaman, to beat the Reno locks, because it is a super control game, and the longer the game goes, the more likely you're gonna lose. So I did not include the what is he called? I don't remember his name. The legendary Leroy Jenkins. I did not include Leroy Jenkins in this deck because I think I rather like have to have duplicates of all the cards that are possible. I could actually remove Sir Finley, but I think Sir Finley also makes the deck much more consistent because you might get the Warlock hero power, so that's really helpful. And I think that's much more helpful than to have burst damage, at least in my opinion. You might think about it and actually remove one Mortal Strike and add Leroy Jenkins to have more burst, or easier burst, so to say. But really the advantage of Mortal Strike is that you can go below Taunt, and that's really helpful, I think. So that's my version of the Pirate Warrior. Or not my version, it's like, I think the most standard version of Pirate Warrior. And then I actually played on the Asia servers, and I found that there is a new Murloc one-turn kill Paladin, and I really like the idea. So, I just saw a guy playing this deck, and I tried to remember as much as I could, and then tried around, and this is my version. So it basically has 2 Mean Street Marshal, 2 Smuggler's Run. I don't include the, what is it called? I don't include the Grime Street Outfitter because I have a relatively high amount of control in this deck, so there's a lot of spells. So, 2 buff minions would not get that much value, and it would just be, kind of tempo loss for less control, I would say. Of course, it could be good if you draw a lot of minions, but like I said, in this version of the deck, I have a lot of spells, so therefore I just run 1 Smuggler's Run because it's much faster, this one costs 2 mana, the Grime Street Outfitter and the Smuggler's Run cost 1 mana. So you can also play it on turn 1, or you can just wait, and play it with another minion or another card for 1 mana. So it's a lot faster than the Grime Street Outfitter, and having a 1/1 by itself, it will do nothing. It's just bad for Paladin. Paladin needs tempo, and therefore I really like the Smuggler's Run because it just increases your tempo. It's like a mini innervate that is delayed, or a mini ramp that is actually delayed because your minions will get buffed the next turn. Now, I have one Ooze in the deck, one Blood Mage. I'm not too sure about the Blood Mage. I just include it because eventually you wanna, especially versus Shaman, you wanna get free damage consecration, so that's why I include him. And it also has spell damage. It also draws you a card, so that's pretty good. Then obviously I have the two Bluegill Warriors, two Murloc War Leaders, and then you also include the new card, which is Finja the Flying Star. It's actually really good and makes the deck so much more consistent if you draw it. I was kind of really lucky when I played the deck, and I almost drew him every time, and I kept it if I was sure that it wasn't totally crazy aggro and I could get away with it, because it's like so good if you just draw him, you know. You will actually get two Murlocs for free. You will draw them immediately if you kill a minion. So you really need to pay attention. I just attacked and was wondering why it wouldn't draw the Murlocs. But you need to kill a minion with this card, so just pay attention here. Now then I have two Equality. I have two Consecration to combo with the Equality, and only one Wild Pyromancer. Then I have one Grimestrid Informant. I don't know, I just took this card into the deck to have more, you know, consistency versus a lot of different decks. You know, if you play ladder, this helps, so you can actually try to figure out what is needed in the certain matchup, and it can really help you. Then I have two Acolyte of Pains, two Elder Peacekeeper, one Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. This one is really good versus aggro. Two Keeper of Uldaman. It's a really good card. You can either, you know, make your 1/1s a 3/3, so it's a tempo card, or you can just destroy a big minion like Ragnaros with your True Silver Champion or another minion. So it's also pretty good, I think. And I included like two healing cards into the game. So there's one Ivory Knight and one Ragnaros Light Lord. So yes, you might see there is no. Oh my god, I have such a bad memory for names. There is no Tyrian Fordring in this deck, and this is, yeah, you might argue that it's not a good decision, but it's not that important. You know, it's not so much of a value game. It's more a try to kill the enemy as fast as possible, and therefore I did not put him into the deck because it would not really help you, because it's more like a defensive card. And yes, you might say it's good versus aggro, but if you made it this far, you know, turn 8, you're most likely also just gonna win the game without him. And therefore, I think healing is more, you know, important than Tyrion actually. Now, I really like this new version of the deck because you can put two Mean Street Marshals in the deck, which gives you much more consistent draw. Two Mean Street Marshals, and the new Murloc makes this deck so much more consistent than before, and also more fun to play, because you can actually, you know, it's a little bit more roguelike, I would say, because you really have to make more decisions when you play the game than before. But therefore I really like it a lot more. And this is my own version of the deck. You know, it's maybe not perfect, there might be better solutions for certain cards, but it's just a try, you know. It's like, it's my attempt after like maybe 10 games or so. Yeah, so that's the new Murloc Paladin. Yeah, and all I have to say about Priest is still bad. To be honest, Priest is still the worst class in the whole game, and actually was really thinking Priest would be really good this meta, and we would only see Priest, but yeah, it's not gonna happen. Like even the Dragon Priest, it can be pretty ridiculous if you curve out really right, but it's most likely not gonna happen, and it's really hard to actually design a Dragon Priest deck so it actually deals with aggro and also more control type of decks, for instance Renolog. So I still think Priest is total ass, you know. You might just play a very defensive Priest to beat aggro decks, but I think, you know, if you want to beat aggro decks, I think the anti-aggro Jade Shaman is still much better than Priest, because it has so much more board clear and it has direct damage. The problem with Priest is basically all of Priest's spell have a certain condition, and if the condition is not met, you cannot use it, and that makes Priest basically a dead class in my opinion now. You could also argue that the new Reno Priest is really good, But I also think it's terrible, because if you don't draw very good, you will just lose, and it's very inconsistent. So Priest is still a very, very bad class, and I would not recommend to play it at all. So yeah, that's my new favorite deck types, and hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you saw a deck that you like, and maybe later. So bye bye.